Assalamu alaikum and very good morning to everyone. Myself Asma Anjuman-E-Islam from Department of Economics, Anglo-Urdu Girls PU College, Hubli. So dear students, hope you remember that in the last video we have learned few concepts from the second chapter of microeconomics, theory of consumer behavior. There we have studied meaning of consumer behavior, then we have studied utility analysis. Under utility analysis, two concepts we have studied. One was cardinal utility analysis and another one was ordinal utility analysis. Under cardinal utility analysis, we have studied in detail, whereas ordinal utility analysis in brief we have studied there. And last and important concept what we have studied was that was law of diminishing marginal utility, which is based on the cardinal utility approach. So dear students, today we are going to study few new concepts from the same chapter, the theory of consumer behavior from microeconomics. Let's see the concepts what we are going to study today. So today we are going to study ordinal utility analysis, then we'll study indifference curve, then we are going to study indifference map, and we'll try to understand marginal rate of substitution, and lastly we are going to study properties of indifference curve. So dear students, cardinal utility approach which we have studied in the last video is very easy to understand, but it suffers from major drawbacks. So here one question is for you. Cardinal utility analysis says that utility can be measured in numbers. In real life, does we really do so? Does we really measure our utility or satisfaction in numbers? Let's try to understand with the help of example here. Suppose we have two items, one is burger and another one is pizza. How I am going to express my utility now? How I am going to express my satisfaction? Does I say that consumption of pizza will give me 60 units of utility, and consumption of burger will give me 40 units of utility? Does we really do so? No, we never express utility in numbers. In spite of that, we used to say consumption of pizza will give me higher level of satisfaction, whereas consumption of burger will give me lower level of satisfaction. And my first preference is for pizza, then second preference is for burger, because pizza is going to give me higher level of satisfaction and burger is going to give me lower level of satisfaction. So this is my choice, and I am going to make my choice on the basis of my satisfaction level. So dear student, this forms the starting point of our today's new topic, new concept, that is ordinal utility analysis. Let's see what is ordinal utility analysis. So ordinal utility analysis, it was a new concept which was introduced, it was originated by one of the prominent economics, Edgeworth, in the year 1881, and it was redefined by Pareto in the year 1906. So you can see the two prominent economists here. So according to these economics, ordinal utility analysis is based on the fact that utility of any commodity that cannot be measured in absolute or numerical form. Thus, they say that utility of any commodity that is not going to be expressed quantitatively, conceptually and theoretically. So let's see what is the meaning of ordinal utility analysis. So ordinal utility analysis means it assumes that utility can be measured in the form of ranks or preferences. For example, we can say that first rank, second rank, third rank, fourth rank and so on. Or we can say that first preference, second preference, third preference and so on. So let's try to understand the simple example with the help, simple meaning with the simple example here. So here we can see that we have three flavors of ice cream. One is strawberry, chocolate and butterscotch. So now the thing is, I am going to prefer for butterscotch first, then I am going to prefer for chocolate, and thirdly I am going to prefer for strawberry. Why is it so? Because butterscotch is going to give me highest level of satisfaction, whereas chocolate is going to give me second highest level of satisfaction and strawberry is going to give me third highest level of satisfaction. This is based, my preference is based on my satisfaction level, that is nothing but the utility. So my first preference is for butterscotch, second is for chocolate, and third is for strawberry. Hope you understood the concept of ordinal utility analysis here. Let's, dear students, ordinal utility analysis can be explained very easily and widely with the help of indifference curve. So indifference curve analysis was popularized and greatly extended in application in the year 1934 by two English economists, R.J.D. Allen and J.R. Hicks. You can see the pictures of two prominent economics here. So according to these economics, indifference curves are the crucial tools of measuring ordinal utility, which is going to show that how a consumer is going to make his choice or make his decision with regard to economic choice and with regard to economic choice and make his expenditure or spend his income on the basis of his preferences or basis of his satisfaction. So let's see what is the meaning of indifference curve. So an indifference curve may be defined as a curve which shows a number of alternative combination of two or more goods which yield the same total satisfaction to the consumer, and this indifference curve is also called as iso-utility curve. Dear students, in simple term we can say that indifference curve is a curve which is going to represent different combination of two or more commodities, which is going to give you the same level of satisfaction at various points on that particular curve. On that particular curve, you have to remember that. Then the next thing what they have said here is it is also called as iso-utility curve. Why it is called as iso-utility curve? Iso means equal and utility means that is the satisfaction in general terms what we can understand. On that particular indifference curve, at various points, different two combination will be measured, and that different combinations of two commodities is going to give us the same level of satisfaction to the consumer. That's why it is called as iso-utility curve. Again we are going to see it with the help of graph, which is going to show combinations of two commodities with various units of two commodities, which is going to show the quantity of various units of two commodities, which is going to give the equal level of satisfaction to the consumer. So let's see, this indifference curve is based two goods in combination. Now the thing is here, indifference curve assumes that the consumer is interested to purchase only two commodities. He is interested in only two commodities. This assumption is made to make it easy for us to understand the indifference curve analysis. The second assumption says that if the consumer is irrational, he will not be able to give the preferences which is going to give him the highest level of satisfaction and which is going to lowest level of satisfaction. Next assumption says that no satiation, that is the consumer always prefer more quantities of goods to lesser quantities. Satiation in the term satiation means which is going to give you the highest level of satisfaction. The term satiation means the act of satisfying your needs. The act of satisfaction is called satiation. So here it is said that the consumer will prefer to the highest quantity of commodities because we know that highest number of quantities is going to give a highest level of satisfaction. If two baskets of goods has been kept in front of us, in one basket it is suppose there are 10 units of commodities and in the second basket there are 7 to 8 units of commodities. Which basket we are going to prefer in reality? We will prefer for the basket which is going to give us 10 units of commodity because the quantity of commodities in the first basket is more there. So that is the rationality of the consumer which is going to show that 10 units of commodities is giving to that is going to give us highest level of satisfaction. Now the fourth assumption says that there is consistency and transitivity in the consumer's choice. Consumer choice is transparency is there in the consumer choice and there is consistency in the consumer's choice. And the last assumption says diminishing marginal rate of substitution applies. So what is diminishing marginal rate of substitution? We'll study it in later part. So the next thing what we are going to see here, that is a graphical representation of indifference curve and indifference schedule. So dear students, you can see here, this is our indifference schedule and this is our indifference curve diagram. So in indifference schedule, we can see here combinations are represented. Two goods are represented here, good X and good Y. Good X is represented as biscuits and good Y is our banana. And now we have 5 combinations A, B, C, D and E. Now see, for at A combination, a consumer is getting 1 biscuit and 12 bananas. D combination gives us 4 biscuits and 3 bananas. And E combination gives us 5 biscuits and 2 bananas. One thing we have to notice here that the number of biscuits, as the number of biscuits is increasing, the number of bananas are decreasing here. Now the next thing, the same thing has been represented in the graph here. On OX axis, this curve is moving here. So we'll take the first combination. Combination A says that by getting 1 unit of biscuit and the combination A says that 1 unit of biscuits and 12 units of bananas. At the combination A, we are getting 1 unit of biscuits and 12 units of bananas. And at the combination B, we are getting 2 units of biscuits and 8 units of banana. 2 units of biscuits and 8 units of banana. And combination C, that is giving us 3 units of biscuits and 5 units of bananas. And combination D is giving us 4 units of biscuits and 3 units of bananas. And combination E is giving us 5 units of biscuits and 2 units of bananas. So these are the points which are plotted here. This is our point combination A, combination B, combination C, combination D and combination E. These points are plotted here. What is indifference map? A group or a set of indifference curve for 2 commodities showing different level of satisfaction is called indifference map. So here we can understand that different combination of curves which are going to be represented in a particular diagram where we are going to see that is called as indifference map here. So indifference map means a group or a set of indifference curve for 2 commodities showing different level of satisfaction is called indifference map. So here we can see that different combination of 2 commodities which is represented in a single diagram is called as indifference map here. So that can be explained with the help of table and again with the help of diagram here. Hypothetically data for indifference curve map we have taken here. Here you can see 3 indifference schedules. This is our IC1 schedule, IC2 schedule and IC3 schedule. IC in the sense that is the indifference curve. Indifference curve schedule 1, schedule 2 and schedule 3. 3 indifference curve are represented in a single diagram and single schedule. That's why it is called as indifference map here. Now we can see that here the same thing has been represented on the diagram also. So we are measuring on OX axis we are measuring X commodities and on OY axis we are measuring Y commodities, and 3 indifferent schedule are represented here. The same thing 3 indifference curve are also represented in the same diagram. Now the thing we can see that most important thing which we have to remember here is the first indifference curve that is going to give us 1 plus 10 units of commodities, and then second indifference and so on we can see here, and second indifference curve that is going to give us 2 units of X commodities and 15 units of Y commodities, and third indifference curve that is going to give us 3 units of X commodities and 20 units of Y commodities. Dear students, here we have to understand that the third indifference curve that is going to give us highest quantity of X was ready to be 2 apples. Why is it so? Again, this law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution that is based on the law of diminishing marginal utility which we have studied in the last video. Let's try to understand this law with the help So being rational, the consumer will always prefer for the higher indifference curve, which is going to give him the higher level of satisfaction. So this very act in economics is called as monotonic preferences. So monotonic preferences means a rational consumer always prefer more of a commodity as it offers him higher level of satisfaction. This very act is called as monotonic preferences. So as we see in the diagram here, we are going to measure on OX axis good X and on OY axis we are measuring good Y. And we can see 3 indifference curve here, and I see 2, which is the highest indifference curve here, that is going to give the higher level of satisfaction. The consumer will always prefer the highest indifference curve because it is going to provide him more number of quantities, which is going to give him the higher level of satisfaction. So this is regarding the monotonic preference. The next thing what we are going to discuss here is the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. So dear students, hope you remember that in assumptions of indifference curve, we have studied the last assumption that says that law of indifference curve analysis is based on the law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. So let's see what is law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. So law of diminishing marginal rate of substitution, it is the rate at which a consumer can give up of amount of one good in exchange for another good while maintaining the same level of utility. So in simple terms we can say that how much a consumer is ready to forego Y commodity to get an additional unit of X commodity so that he can get the same level of satisfaction. The same thing has been represented in the form of formula here, that MRS is equal to delta Y divided by delta X. Delta Y means change in Y and delta X means change in X. Now Y is one commodity and X is one commodity. So by dividing this you will get a ratio that how much a consumer is ready to forego Y commodity so that he can get the an additional unit of X commodity, which is going to give him the same level of satisfaction. The same thing we can understand with the help of example here as it has been given in picture. So here we can see there are 3 baskets. So basket 1, in the basket 1 the consumer is getting 10 apples and 1 orange. Now suppose the consumer want to get the second orange. To get second orange the consumer is ready to give 4 units of apple. So for second orange the consumer is ready to give 4 units, and suppose the consumer wants the third orange. To get third orange the consumer is ready to give only 2 units of apple. That shows that the consumer's willingness to get the additional unit of orange, that is decreasing. That's why. So the next thing what we are going to see here is the graphical representation of marginal rate of substitution. So here we can say this is the schedule which is going to represent first that is going to represent combinations, second good X is represented here, then good Y is represented, and lastly we are going to see the MRS, that is the marginal rate of. The same thing has been represented in the diagram here. First we will see the schedule. The combination A is going to represent 1 unit of good X and 12 unit of good Y, and combination B is going to represent 2 units of good X and 8 units of good Y, and combination C is going to represent 3 units of good X and 5 units of good Y, and so on we can see here. Now the thing which we have to understand here is that is the marginal rate of substitution. So marginal rate of substitution says that to get an additional unit of good X, the consumer is ready to give 4 units of good Y. The same thing for get the third unit of good X, the consumer is ready to give up 3 units of good Y. So to get 4th unit of good X, the consumer is ready to give up 2 units of good Y, and to get 5th unit of good X, the consumer is ready to give 1 unit of good Y. The thing what we have to understand here is to get an additional unit of good X, the consumer is giving up a good Y continuously, but it is diminishing, it is in the diminishing. The same thing has been represented in the diagram also here. Good X is represented on OX axis and good Y is represented on OY axis. Has been represented here. This initially the consumer is ready to give highest unit, later he is ready to give less and less amount of commodities to get an additional unit of X commodity, because it is based on the law of diminishing marginal utility which we have studied in the last video. Hope you understood the concept here. The next thing what we are going to see here is, there is the properties of indifference curve. So the first property what we are going to study here is, indifference curve slopes downwards. Indifference curve that is going to slope downward in the sense that is a negative sloping curve that is going to slope from left to right, as we can see in the diagram here, that is going to move from left to right, and it is a downward sloping curve. Why is it so? If a consumer wants to maintain the same level of satisfaction, he has to give up few commodities to get an additional unit of another commodity. As we can say that to get an additional unit of X commodity, that is banana, the consumer has to give up few units of apples there, so that he can get the same level of satisfaction on the property. Says that higher indifference curve represent higher level of satisfaction. So here we can say that each indifference curve which is represented on indifference map, that is going to give the different level of satisfaction to the consumer. Now we can say that each indifference curve which is represented in the diagram here, that is we can see IC1 is there and IC2 curve is there. Both the indifference curve are going to give different level of satisfaction or unequal level of satisfaction to the consumer, and we have studied already that the higher indifference curve is going to give the higher level of satisfaction and lower indifference curve is going to give the lower level of satisfaction. This concept we have studied in indifference map, that is under the monotonic preference. So why the same thing, two indifference curve, one is IC1 and the one is IC2. So IC1 curve, that is going to represent OM unit of bananas and ON unit of biscuits. So we can see this is the area how much of commodities the consumer is going to get if he is on the IC1 curve. Suppose the consumer moves from IC1 to IC2 curve, he will get ON unit of biscuits and OM1 unit of banana. So OM1 is greater than OM. So we can understand that on the basis of area also we can understand, and simple thing we can see that the area of OM1 to ON is greater here, ONQM M1. This is the area where the consumer is getting the highest number of goods or more quantity of good, which is going to provide the higher level of satisfaction to the consumer. So the next thing what we are going to see here is the third property, indifference curve never intersect with each other. Two indifference curve never going to intersect with each other because two indifference curve are going to give unequal level of satisfaction to the consumer. So these are the few important properties of indifference curve. So as a conclusion we can say that the indifference curve analysis is superior to utility analysis. Why is it so? So here we can say it dispenses with the assumption of measurability. So indifference curve is going to give the concept of measurability, which is going where we are going to measure easily the utility of a consumer. The second thing we can see that it studies more than one commodity at the time. At the same time we are going to measure the utility of two commodities and the satisfaction level of the consumer at the same time. And third thing we can say that it does not assume constancy of money. So dear students, hope you understood the concept what we have studied today. Thank you.